Hello my little lovelies. Today I've got a bit of an end of year sort of video for you. So it is December the 30th 2022 and I want to come on here and kind of do a reading stats check-in, go over some of my favourite books, a little bit of updates, basically some bookish updates. So let's start with the amount of books I read in 2022. I think it was my most successful in terms of quantity that I've ever done, and the grand total of that so far, even though I've got one more day, but I don't know if I can finish a book unless it's an audio book or something. So far, I have read 165 books this year. I am absolutely astounded by that number. I cannot believe it. I had some really good quality books as well, so it's not just like empty numbers, if that makes sense. There was some great stuff as well, as I'll show you later when I talk a little bit about some of my favourite books and then kind of the lead up to my most favourite book out of all of them for the year. So I also recently, like in December, made a Storygraph account as well, and I find that it's better in terms of looking at the stats and stuff, but I'm sort of flitting through Goodreads and Storygraph still, pretty much using Goodreads the majority because I'm so used to that interface, but I'm slowly trying to not transition completely because I want to use both of them, I think, but getting my head around Storygraph. But so far I'm really enjoying it. So I wanted to talk about all my favourite books for 2022. I have pretty much a favourite book each month except for November. November just didn't really scream anything in particular for me. So I'm going to go month by month and let you know which books were my favourites. As you know, you can go through all my wrap-ups and see some of my in-depth thoughts and feelings, my reviews, look at my Goodreads, which is always linked in the description if you want a little bit more detail. But just to save some time in this video, I'm just going to show you guys a little bit about them. Maybe talk a little bit about some of them, depends if anything comes to mind. Let's just get into it. So January's favourite book was Lem Sisay's My Name Is Why. This is non-fiction about Lem and his time in care, and basically just trying to find his history and getting access to documents that he should by right be able to access, and the difficulties there. My place of work had access to a live sort of Q&A and conversation with him, which was amazing. So I watched it through Teams, and it was just really cool to see a little bit more about him and his work. He's a poet, he does like activist stuff, he helps like those in need, and he specifically helps children in care like around Christmas and times like that, just to make them feel loved and have a little something to open on the day. But he does so much more as well. So yeah, January, this was my favourite, and it was a memoir, so that was a nice way to start because I don't read an awful lot of non-fiction. Okay, February's favourite book was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's a dark gothic classic, twisted romance, mystery, murder, all of that. I've really enjoyed this one. March's favourite read was Luster by Raven Lelaney. It was a strange one. I would describe it to be literary fiction, and yeah, it was just very different. Basically it had conversations of the black identity and also the kink world, and sort of some unusual relationship dynamics and how that worked. Some power play, but is it really power abuse? You know, there's a lot of questions that came from this one, and I really enjoyed it. It's not something that, again, I have read much of in the past. The next couple of favourite books are either ebooks or audio books, so I don't actually have a physical one to hand, but one of them was a NetGalley arc that I read, and that was in April, and that was The End of Men. I really enjoyed this. It definitely had a lot of sort of, what's the word, like crisis conversation. It's basically about some sort of pandemic, so definitely be wary going into it if you are easily triggered by those sort of things, understandably what we've recently just come out of. But yeah, it was great. It was concentrating on those within the medical field as well as everyday people, and it kind of went across the countries as well to kind of see how everybody was tackling this, which was really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. I think it had a full cast. I listened to it, so I had an ebook arc, but I listened to it through my library service and it had a full cast. It was awesome. Another e-arc that I got through NetGalley and one that was a favourite for May was Valhalla by Nikki, I forget her surname, but this was amazing. It was about the black identity, a toxic friend kind of breaking the dynamic, and sort of like a generational mystery unearthing. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed that one. I listened for the first time to Aristotle and Dante Discovers the Secrets of the Universe, and this was a favourite for June. I absolutely adored it. Absolutely adored it. I think a lot of you guys probably know what Aristotle and Dante is about. They recently released a sequel, so I'll be eager to check that out at some point, hopefully on audio as well. It was read by Lin-Manuel, who is Hamilton and various other characters. I think he's also Hades in the new Percy Jackson live action TV show, which I've not yet seen. I don't know if it's out at this moment in time, but yeah, I absolutely adored that one. In July, my favourite book was a classic, and this was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I read this one as a buddy read with Gemma from Read a Book Gem, and I absolutely adored it. It's got that kind of small isolated village mentality. A new woman comes in, she's not part of the norm, she doesn't seem to be married, or she's widowed or something, with a young boy, and basically a lot of gossip ensues as people in the community try to get close to her and find out what her story is. Of course, that sort of dynamic for a woman of the time is very scandalous, so there's a lot of rumours and, you know, he say she say going into this as well, which I absolutely adored reading about. It was fantastic. August's favourite book was Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I absolutely adored this one. I have a full reading vlog for this if you are interested in giving that a watch. It's got all my live thoughts and feelings, and yeah, I'll stop talking about this one now. In September, my favourite read was a contemporary, another new for me moment. This was You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. The books that I've read by Emily Henry so far I've really adored, and this was just a lovely summer romance that I just absolutely ate up. It had much more depth than I was anticipating. I kind of just went in it for the romance, which again is something rare for me, but oh my god, absolutely adored this. Okay, so my favourite read for October was Mythago Wood by Robert Holdstock. This is a beautiful 30th anniversary edition by Fantasy Masterworks. It's forwarded by Neil Gaiman, who I absolutely adore, and this one was a classic fantasy. I feel like I spoke a lot about this around October's time. I can't remember if I did a specific review, or if I did a reading vlog, or if I just gushed about it in October's wrap up. So have a little look around those kind of months, October, November sort of time, to see if you can find any extra content for this one, because I know I spoke a lot about this. Skipping over now to December, as I say, I didn't have a favourite book in November, but this is a new release. It is An Incarnation of Shadow and Light by S.A. Christensen. Oops, there's my little note. I was sent this by the author, which I was very thankful for, and I absolutely adored it. I do have a video. I think it's coming out, I think it's one of my first videos for the new year, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Those are my favourite books for 2022. I think the penultimate book, is that the right word? That one, if it's a competition, I don't know, but the book that stood with me for the longest time that I couldn't stop thinking about, and will probably be my favourite book of the year, was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I do have a full review on this one as well, I'm pretty sure. I just, even now, you know, I read this back in February, and even now I'm still thinking about this story, the sinister mystery, like, oh, it was beautiful. So yeah, those are all my favourite books of the year. Let's get on to the classics that I read. So I set myself a smaller classics TBR for 2022. I think the year before I had 8. For 2022 I set a total of 5. I will say straight off the bat I didn't get to these 2, so everything else, if you want to check out my original classics TBR, have a little look. Everything else on that list I read, but I didn't get to these 2, and that is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens and Black Mischief by Evelyn Waugh. So yeah, they just didn't capture my interest enough to pick them up and give them a go, unfortunately. I'm just going to quickly whiz through all the books that I kind of class as classics that I did end up reading in 2022. So we have Shirley Jackson's The Tooth, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, A Maze of Death by Philip K. Dick, Don't Panic, Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Neil Gaiman, Kiki's Delivery Service by Aiko Kodono, The Water Babies by Charles Kingsley, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, My Neighbor Totoro by Hayao Miyazaki and Suguko Kobo, The Sandman Volume 2, The Doll's House by Neil Gaiman, The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, Mythago Wood by Robert Holdstock, Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. I think that's all of them. I'm sure I will update, edit in extra things if I have missed anything. But yeah, I think I've checked off everything I wanted to talk about in this video. My favourite books of the year, general check-in, how many books I read and the classics I got through. So let me know your stats, what sort of stuff you got up to during 2022. Did you find it to be a successful reading year for you? Did you get any goals smashed that you had planned at the beginning of the year? Did you find a new genre outside of your general comfort area that you ended up falling in love with? Any favourites, any major letdowns, anything. But for now, I want to wish you a very happy new year and I shall speak to you in 2023. Bye.